How's it going, guys? I'm Matt Torx the Satyr, and today on my journey to play every game in the Fallout franchise, after finishing up the original trilogy, we come to arguably the lowest point in this beloved franchise, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. Now, to some Fallout fans, just saying the name Fallout Brotherhood of Steel sends chills down their spines. But if you're left scratching your head as you've never heard of a Fallout game called Brotherhood of Steel, there's a pretty good reason. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel was a game released in January of 2004 to PS2 and Xbox consoles exclusively, without a PC release ever coming out, selling only around 120,000 total copies worldwide between the two consoles. But why is this game so hated by fans in the Fallout community? Well, to put it simply, this isn't Fallout. The game feels so wildly different from anything else in the series has ever made that it just seems like the name Fallout was just slapped onto a random game in the middle of production to boost sales. It features all new mechanics, no character creation, a licensed soundtrack that uses nu metal music instead of 50s blues, and no role-playing elements whatsoever. The game was released by Interplay Entertainment and would end up being the last Fallout game ever made by the studio, which may have caused its downfall since the company was bought out by Bethesda Studio just 3 years later in 2007. And after Bethesda's acquisition of the franchise, they abandoned the game and marked it as not canon to the Fallout universe, so for years it has lied stagnant and forgotten. But today, I'm doing the unthinkable and playing Fallout Brotherhood of Steel in 2024. The game starts with another opening monologue, done by a different narrator than the last three games, who tells us about how, as the lucky few were able to escape in vaults underground during the nuclear fallout, the rest of civilization that was able to survive formed into a lawless wasteland that rewarded the selfish and punished the weak, devoid of any order or resemblance to the societies of old, and how the Brotherhood, self-proclaimed Knights of the Wasteland, arose to fight the super mutant forces and restore order. But there's always another threat right around the corner. Closing with a shot of our three protagonists looking across the desert. The tutorial then has us running through a Brotherhood training camp. Now, in case you haven't seen what's quite different about this game yet, Fallout BOS is a top-down dungeon crawler of all things, that is you fighting your way through the Texas wasteland through rats, bugs, and raiders galore, all on a mission to recover your missing Brotherhood of Steel comrades. This tutorial introduces all the basic mechanics: movement, a weird camera that can sometimes lock onto opponents, healing, using weapons, and navigating obstacles. Everything different from previous installments. Continuing with the theme of differences, we are tasked with picking one of only 3 characters to play as: a bald man named Cyrus, a woman named Nadia, and Kane the Ghoul. Now, I chose Kane because he seemed the most interesting. Apparently there are also 3 unlockable characters that you can play as: Patty, Rhombus, and the Vault Dweller. But I'd be damned if I'm going to play this game long enough to actually unlock any of them. Anyway, as far as the story goes, this woman with a questionable outfit, known only to us as Raider Matron, has been stealing the resources of the town of Cabron, as well as enslaving the people with her army of raiders that all look the exact same. Despite the mayor's petty attempts at trying to stop her, we find ourselves stumbling onto the scene shortly after near the town tavern. We talk to yet another poorly dressed girl named Ruby, who offers her unique services to the player. We deny because we're on a mission and head into the bar to ask some of the other citizens. Inside the bar, the man named Armpit, who runs the place, is being threatened by some of the same raiders we saw from earlier. After killing all the bandits, we talk to Armpit and he thanks us very briefly, right before giving us a stupid quest to collect scorpion tails for a new liquor he was trying to produce, while promising to pay 10 caps for every single rad scorpion tail that I collect and give to him. Well, as far as fate goes, this would actually end up being perfect, as after talking to a couple people, the mayor of the town tells me about an abandoned warehouse, full of rad scorpions that have been making life hard for the citizens of Cabron. And if I successfully clear the entire building of rad scorpions, he will unlock the elevator that leads to the crater, the supposed area where my missing paladins have disappeared to. So I reluctantly made my way to the warehouse, and began my journey of slowly and methodically taking out all of the scorpions and giant rats within. It was here where I figured out just how janky the combat could be. The way fighting ideally works is that by pressing the right bumper, I lock onto an enemy, as highlighted in red. Then by pressing the attack button, my attack should always hit the enemy provided this red glow is surrounding them. But half the time when I press the button, my character just faces a completely random direction while the enemy continues to rail me. Oh, and you know how guns are usually a ranged weapon, right? Well, thanks to how this gameplay works, the only way I can reliably use guns is if I'm smack dab in the middle of their goddamn face, which defeats the entire fucking purpose of a gun in the first place. So for 90% of this playthrough I'm using melee weapons, because even though they have the same problem of me having to touch my lips with the enemy, at least that's what they're supposed to do. But despite all this, making our way through the first warehouse actually wasn't the hardest thing to do. since the rad scorpions were stupid enough to just stand there and die. The only time I would really get in trouble was when I ran out of stim packs or ran into one of these green guys who would fling glowing green balls of radiation at me, which did damage over time, causing me to stop what I was doing and make a full sprint towards them to end their lives. Now, any good dungeon is bound to have a boss, and the boss of this warehouse was none other than a giant rad scorpion who chased me around the room, swinging his claws and tail like a madman in an attempt to end my life. Even though there were a lot of close calls, I defeated him with only one death and made my way back to Armpit to reclaim my prize. 560 shiny new caps for my amusement, which I used to buy a new pair of spiked gloves, since my current iron gloves were starting to fail me. Then I talked to Ruby again, who this time has a mission for me. Her cat, named Pussy of all things, has gone missing in the crater and she wants me to locate him for her. I make my way down to the crater, fight these really annoying tick enemies, and find the poor kitty's corpse in a rundown building nearby. Ruby thanks me for what I did and gives me an extra 200 caps as payment. Moving on from cat retrieval and warehouse cleaning, we focus back to our original goal of finding the missing paladins. Now, since the mayor had told us that he saw them exploring the crater earlier that day, that was the place we would look first. So after running through, we find layers of the upper and lower crater. We find ourselves traveling to an underground cave at the end of this crater. Inside is a spiraling maze full of toxic goo, and those exact same rad scorpion throwers that killed me before. I ended up dying a lot more here than I did anywhere else, but I carried on through the struggle and ended up at the next boss fight. It turns out the mayor of the town, the coward that he was, had lied about the paladins in an attempt to ambush and kill us, the player, on orders of the raider leaders. She promised him to leave Cabron alone if he could successfully bring my head to her with his own smaller gang of raiders. Now, I wasn't going down without a fight, but apparently so was my PC, as every time I would go into the arena, my game would crash and bring me back to my last save point. Eventually, the game didn't crash, and I got the ability to actually play the game. The mayor used explosives that he could throw all around the arena and detonate after a set time. These explosives could damage anybody within its radius, be it me, the raider henchman, or even the mayor himself. So the game plan was to attack the mayor, run away when he threw the bombs, wait for him to stop, then attack again. But unfortunately, after my successful attempt, the game crashed once again, sending me back to the beginning of the fight and saving none of my progress. So, broken and defeated, this is where I decided to leave off. Now, this game is honestly really confusing to me, as I don't quite understand why it even exists. It's fine as an unremarkable, generic dungeon crawler, considering it was released on the PS2. Its gameplay is fine, albeit janky and confusing. But as a Fallout game, it is by far the worst in the series, since as I said, it doesn't feel like Fallout. So many things that made Fallout so iconic and recognizable in story, humor, music, role-playing, and gameplay are all missing in this game, causing it to stand as a major outlier in an otherwise great series of games. Now, I'm not saying it's the worst game ever released, but it is a bad Fallout game, and I'll stand by that opinion indefinitely. But I'll be damned if my curiosity doesn't make me want to play this game more. So if you really think I should play more Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, make sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments down below.